Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm your host, John Scott, joined as always by my co-host, Matt Essex, and welcome to WrestleLine in what's been quite a while since we last recorded and put out a show, to be quite frankly, with you guys. Just literally, I've had loads of emails saying, like, what's happened to us? Are we still around? Are we closing? Are we not doing the podcast anymore? Really and truly, probably more on my part, I would say. It's just been really hectically busy, and it's kind of the reason I haven't really been able to put that many shows out, just with like work commitments and stuff like that. And it's just the kind of timing of everything. It's just been a bit of a chaotic time. Obviously, I want to wish all our listeners, people that have been tuning in for goodness knows how many years to the show, hope everyone had some happy holidays recently. I know myself and Matt are just literally, it seems like a lot longer, but it actually isn't. It was only like this past week, but I think the build up to it was just pretty crazy on my end. Matt, how you doing? And bring you into the show now. How have you done? And did you enjoy the holiday period yourself?
Yeah, I'm all good. Of course, first Christmas in my new place, so what's not to like about that. So yeah, starting the new traditions and everything, and looking forward to starting a new year. And I'm sure I'm not the only one looking forward to starting the new year. I'm sure, as we're going to talk about later, WWE, they're going to be looking forward to starting the new year because they've got some some bad publicity to live down here. Because let's just say the ratings aren't in their favour. So you can only move on to bigger and better things from here. So.
Yeah, let's hope.
Get into a little bit then.
Yeah, I hope so. Literally, I haven't really got too much format for the show today. Just thought we'd kind of go on a little bit of reflecting of 2018. Myself and Matt as well. We went to quite a lot of shows this year, live shows. So it was kind of cool to look back on that. In fact, me and Matt, we met up last night and we was talking about some of those shows as well. And probably going to just sort of give our own little experiences and what we thought was the best one that we went to and why. I know Matt actually went to a few more than I did actually during the year, so he might have a completely different view to what mine would be. But 2018, Matt, I know it's a bit of a difficult one to sort of put in a few words, but if you had to sort of title 2018, what would it start with, Matt, on your end?
Roller coaster. It's just been like up and down, and there's been highs, there's been lows, there's been extremely low lows, but there's been unexpected benefits to it. I mean, Survivor Series, it wasn't all bad. There were some good matches in there, so the only downside to it is I can see more negativity than I can positivity. But like I said earlier, you can only go up from there.
Yeah, it's crazy to think we had the start of the year, Shinsuke Nakamura and Asuka almost on top of the world in WWE. Really thought it was going to pan out to be a completely different year for those two. And to come to the back end of the year, Matt, it is very, very shocking to see where those two... I mean, maybe Asuka, you can say now, is probably where she should have been maybe a while back. But I don't know. I don't even know if that's good enough for me, even for her. I know it's a big thing to have the title, but sometimes there's too much damage done sometimes before these things. But very interesting. I think for me, I would sum this year up, if you're going to go for roller coaster, I would probably say I would say slightly underwhelmed, I will say, in a lot of things, and mainly around, when I say that, around sort of the whole Ronda Rousey thing. I was definitely expecting a lot more. I'm not just talking about from her, I'm talking about from just the way they were going to use her. I thought they were really going to sort of smash this home run and have something they've really been positioning themselves for about this whole women's sort of progression towards the women in WWE. I thought Ronda would be the perfect person to have there, but I kind of feel like it's almost like, one step forward but almost two steps back all of a sudden. Sometimes it's not that been as classy as I thought they would be. Matt, I want to sort of touch on some of the things this year. I will say a few of our listeners, Matt, they sort of gave us some of their reflections as well. And I'm going to say DX1, I think you might not, Matt, but he says the rivalry of the year as far as match quality for him has to be, for him, Ciampa and that whole rivalry, Tommaso Ciampa along with Gargano. Would that be the same for you there, Matt, or was there one that stands out better than that in the context of just WWE at least?
No, I would agree with that, because although we saw quite a few matches with them involved, they always managed to improve upon it, and that's very hard to do, because when you have that original great match, usually the rematch is a little bit watered down and a bit harder to pull off, but they always did a good job of progressing the feud, and they're still doing that now. In fact, like as we come towards the end of the year, and we're still asking questions about these two guys, and we're still saying, now will there be another match, or are they going to be on the same page? So to have that rivalry from the start of the year still going now, and people still talking about it, it's quite a feat.
Yeah, it's and it's something that sort of came about. A few of these matches, they actually happened by accident, and they actually panned out really well for the both of them. And I would probably agree with it. I can't really think, I haven't got everything in front of me, but I can't really think of too much that sort of just stuck in my mind as a great rivalry in WWE terms. I'm sure there's been a lot of feuds this year, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles. I'm sure you could look at that maybe as another, but I do feel like sometimes some of those matches between AJ and Samoa Joe, as good as they are, I do feel like they sort of almost drag it out too long just for the sake of it. Whereas the Tommaso Ciampa Gargano one, it seemed more organic, it seemed more natural to go with the other matches that they had, certainly. So there's been obviously, Matt, there's always some fun stuff to reflect on, especially in WWE. The whole I'm sure most people's really from our podcast point of view was mainly around the whole Seth Rollins Dolph Ziggler match, the Iron Man match that just went down horrendously in the end, with the whole countdown clock and all the rest of it. Obviously some sad moments this year as well, obviously with Roman Reigns. Definitely hope that he's going to get better on the health front there, and wish him all the best into all that. And maybe some shocking moments, Matt, if there was any for you. What was we can go back to WrestleMania, Matt, and I think we were both shocked when we sort of saw Brock Lesnar winning or retaining the title there. But is there anything that really truly stands out for you, Matt, as shocking in WWE, whether it be a return or just something that's happened?
It's kind of hard these days when we're talking about these things. Truly now, nothing should really surprise us. But for me, it's Shawn Michaels coming out of retirement. That blew me away. Come on. I'm not going to say I agree with it, but it was shocking. I didn't really need to see it, and I thought I would never see it. So to see someone turn their opinions around so quickly, it just that is the most shocking thing for me. Yeah,
actually, I completely forgot, but it shows how underwhelming yet another thing was, really. Who'd ever think, Matt, D-Generation X, that whole build-up to the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, I was so sort of like, every time I saw them trying to promote this thing, I was so like, oh my goodness, this is embarrassing. I was really not up for it, and by the time it got there, it was even worse. And that actually goes back to even the Australia show between Triple H and Undertaker. That whole end of an era thing and all this lark that we got again and again, and not really the most amazing thing. I think in terms of good years for performers, gonna say again, I think that there's been some really good consistent performers in WWE, and it's hard these days given what you've got and what you're given. And I think that I would say I think The Miz has had another decent year for WWE, given what he's been having. It seems like with The Miz, Matt, you can kind of give him anything and he'll make the best of it. and it seems to work with him. He seems like a really good natural performer, and I never thought I would say that, but I would say the last 2 years on this podcast I've been singing his praises quite a lot, which was something I never really... I was never a huge Miz fan, but he's really grown on me, and not just grown on me from a work rate point of view, but also as a star. I do really think this guy may be, maybe underused somewhat for WWE, because I actually think he's a little bit more of a star than what we give him credit for. What about you, Matt? Has there been any sort of really good years for WWE performers? Because it's very difficult in this day and age to have like a whole year's worth of, what you call good performances. I mean, is AJ Styles in there, Matt, would you say, for his year?
Oh yeah, of course, he definitely in that category, and he always will be as long as he keeps going in that ring, because he's just that kind of caliber of a talent. But the only problem with that is that although he has been at the top of his game, he's not really been booked as such. He's usually halfway up the cards just to keep people's interest
it's not
going,
a main
because
event.
I know people will be invested in him no matter what. I think other people on that level as well, it's like people like Seth Rollins. He's great, and he's been a great performer throughout the year as well, but in a similar kind of role, just like in the mid-card era. And, it's a shame, because I want these guys to stand out a little bit more, and it seems like now the company is a bit of a faceless company. I mean, I know we've lost Roman now, and that was who they seem to be grooming for the face of the company, but with him absent now, we just kind of... I think people like The Miz do have a good chance of this, because although he's not someone that they would choose to be the face, he is the guy that goes out there and does all of the interviews and does the PR and actually has his own show, Miz and Mrs. and all that, and it's all doing incredibly well for him. So, and at a time when there is no face for the company, he's a great spokesman for them.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's an interesting point there. I think in terms of surprise moments, I would say I will say I was surprised when Daniel Bryan won the WWE title, Matt. Given the way he was going, given the way he was being booked up until that point, I really thought that, him not going to Saudi Arabia, that WWE all of a sudden, that sort of gave them the perfect excuse not to push this guy anymore. But with the heel turn as well, I am slightly surprised WWE have gone that route. Now, I want to ask you, Matt, I mean, slightly off subject, but it is to do, I mean, it happened in 2018, but with Daniel Bryan, I've had a lot of mixed reactions to this. In fact, Jimbo says, although he called this, he doesn't really like the character that WWE are presenting, because he said it is somewhat, I guess what he's trying to point out is kind of what we discussed probably last night when we were talking about it, was the whole thing that actually, if you just put it in context, it's actually right what he says, but because he's kind of shouting it now, it's now perceived as bad, when actually we all liked him for these reasons of standing up for things that nobody probably dare would. And you could even argue, standing up for, basically putting his heels down, saying I'm not going to Saudi Arabia. Okay, neither did John Cena. Was one of those things why fans do relate to this guy. But what about you, Matt? What do you think for Daniel Bryan? Because other people will argue this, and they'll say actually this is a good thing for him. He needed something fresh to do because it was getting a little bit stale. What do you think, Matt?
I actually don't mind this character they've given him. I mean, of course, they tried this kind of thing out in the past. It kind of reminds me of CJ Parker back in the day on NXT, that kind of whole global warrior kind of thing. But at the same time, although people are now disliking him, it's not changed his personality too much. It's just like an exaggerated form of his previous personality, and so he's not really going against any of his previous statements or any of his moral values. It's still intact, so he can always switch back to a face rather fluidly through that, because it's just toning it down is the only thing he has to do really. And I like heels like this as well, because I feel like when you have a favourite wrestler, you should stick by them. So when he starts shouting fickle at people who used to do all the yes stuff and support him and all that, it's kind of true. People are turning their back on him, and all he's doing is voicing a few more opinions. If you like Daniel Bryan, stick by him no matter what. That's what I say.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, isn't it? So, yes, very interesting there with him going forward into 2019. Definitely didn't see it coming. I really did think with the year AJ had that perhaps he might, they might try and run a record with him, but no, they just didn't seem to want to do it in the end. Maybe there are some contract issues going ahead, who knows, with that one. But yeah, interesting for him.